Get rich by becoming a sales engineer. This is the topic of this article. Um, so, news for my personal career, I did do the transition from software engineer to sales engineer. So it's half realistic, I think, view of the marketplace, but also half very personal journey of why I decided to go into sales engineering. So yeah, let's assume a few things about you. This will be the most relevant if you are a software engineer right now. You're pretty good at building product, but you feel like you can get more freedom and more satisfaction out of life than just kind of becoming a staff engineer at Meta. If your goal really is to build freedom through wealth, I think you really have to consider the sales engineering role, um, for a few reasons. I mean, Naval kind of coined this, but it's true. I mean, learn to sell and learn to build. If you can do both, you're unstoppable. You think of Elon Musk. I mean, yeah, sure, he's probably a little bit shallower on the engineering side, but he's an engineer. He knows a little bit deeper of how his product is built, and he's a great salesman. Steve Jobs, probably similar. Larry and Sergey, very similar. They built PageRank, and then they went and sold it, and then built the business that is Google. Arguably Bill Gates as well. And I think also software engineers, we got a bit of a head start because I feel like it's much harder to learn engineering after you've gotten older. You know, just more responsibilities come in life. You got a family. It's hard to like have that heads down time to just learn how to build and code. It's just much harder. It's way easier to learn how to code first when you have all the free time and learn how to sell. Because learning how to sell is essentially relational. Um, and you always can do more reps. You're always doing that in your day to day work. Um, so the real advantage with sales engineering is that it's kind of a half step into sales. You're not a full account exec, but you're not just writing code either. You get tons of rep at doing the things that'll make you a better communicator. So you'll constantly be doing discovery calls, technical demos, webinars, doing like talking about things that you're essentially super comfortable with already. It's just you're doing the thing that you're not comfortable with, which is communicating those ideas. Um, and the benefit is also because I'm sure software engineering is super lucrative. You get a very similar level of comp as a sales engineer also. Obviously, we'll get into comp later, but it's pretty comparable to most senior level software engineering positions. And once you've built this skill set of deep technical expertise as well as the ability to communicate those ideas, yeah, I mean, you literally become unstoppable. There's tons of examples of indie hackers who have mastered both, making incredible lives as indie hackers. I got a few lists of folks here, Mark Liu, Peter Levels, Danny Postma. These are all like solopreneurs, indie hackers who just learned how to code, learned how to sell, making pretty good MRR. Uh, just I guess monthly recurring revenue just to fund their lifestyles off of these individual SaaS tools. Danny Postma himself also very similar. But that's not it, right? You can use the same skill set and you'll be a better CTO if you go and raise, if you want to do the VC track, because again, like you're the technical guy for your startup, but you're also able to communicate why it is like your particular tech stack is building a better mode or whatever it is. You could run a dev agency, because now you're technical as well as CEO. You can have a better conversation when you're talking to clients. You can just run that yourself and make a killing doing software development agency work. Bottom line, you'll be unstoppable. Let's get into what sales engineering exactly looks like, what the general market is like for sales engineers, how to prep and interview for SE positions, and then I'll kind of go over a quick overview of like my journey into this position. So yeah, the high level, like essentially what it is you're the account executive's technical liaison. The account executive is the salesperson. They are the ones who are responsible for closing that deal, full stop. And their compensation reflects it also. They'll typically be on a slightly higher quota-based compensation than you will be, because they have more skin in the game. We have skin in the game also as sales engineers, but it's certainly not like to that full degree. It's a lot of discovery calls. Can we actually solve your problem? Is this a mutually beneficial arrangement? We might do technical webinars, showcase product features, lots of product demos. showcasing the product, right? So you've done the discovery, you know that the customer needs XYZ features, you showcase those features, pretty simple stuff. Um, and this kind of like wild card aspect of like the job, which is you may not always be in a call, you may not always have your day backed, you know, back to back, you know, calls with actual customers. So there may be some opportunity to do some growth engineering or whatever makes sense for your particular company. Um, so yeah, I mean, usually you're helping out account execs with those like technical bits that are, you know, relevant to your particular product. Typically, you're not going to see sales engineering roles in less technical products. For software specifically, you know, a lot of SaaS tools will need sales engineering if the tool is very technical. Like a lot of cloud services need sales engineering just because it is such a complex undertaking to switch between cloud providers. And you'll need to have someone who's really technical because typically the buyer will want to bring in their director of engineering, their VP of engineering in order to vet the solution at a very deep technical level. So yeah, I mean, the main bulk of the work is going to be like discovery calls and technical demos, you know, hopping into conversations with clients, make sure that both parties know what they're getting into, and so on and so on. So yeah, like I mentioned, like, you know, your calendar may not always be full, you know, so you may be running webinars where you're kind of showcasing new features, or, you know, you may be creating little marketing assets using your engineering skill set, using your product to kind of showcase value, you know, add to inbound for the company. So let's take a look into the actual like market for sales engineers. So this is some quick snapshots that I got from Levels at FYI. So just kind of at a glance, obviously the median is a lot higher for sales engineers than it is for software engineers. I think, and also we can see like the big difference is like the high end of the compensation band is a little bit lower for sales engineers than it is for software engineers. So I think there's a few reasons why this happens. So the sales engineering role typically has to be filled by someone more senior. I think just by nature of the job. It's a little bit hard to graduate college, let's say with a computer science degree, and hop into a conversation with the VP of engineering or director, right, whatever it is, and build trust that you know what you're talking about. Just kind of, you know, fact of life. It is what it is. It's just difficult to have that conversation. So I think typically you'll see more senior folks transitioning into sales engineering to begin with. So that's why I think the salary just starts off a little bit higher. You have generally folks who have already some technical experience getting into these roles. And on the high end of comp, like sales engineering is not a role that scales like software. There are 10x software engineers that can just deliver outsized value for organizations by themselves. Not the case necessarily with sales engineers, because code has such high leverage by the nature of code. Sales engineering does not have the same type of dynamic to it. The way you can leverage your skills as a sales engineer is typically go up in terms of the type of clients you'll be going after. So maybe you'll be doing more enterprise deals. But that kind of caps off as well. Really, the only way to leverage is leveraging yourself as a coach and as a mentor to more sales engineers, aka management. That's essentially like the way up. So nobody really like will stay as a sales engineer for most of their career, unless, you know, for personal reasons. As far as like career ladder goes, it goes up in terms of management. So you obviously, like a sales engineer salary here is not necessarily commensurate with like growth, because you're talking director of sales engineering, maybe chief revenue officer at the high end. That's typically how it looks like, or just, you know, account exec, right? You just go double click into sales really hard. Whereas like that's not necessarily true. You know, you can be a staff software engineer at Meta. It doesn't make sense to be a staff sales engineer. That doesn't make sense. Before we get into the interview, yeah. So the actual market overall position, number of positions, obviously the number of positions for sales engineers is going to be much lower. And you think about like why this is. If you start a company, a VC-backed startup, typical, right? You have a CEO and CTO founding team, classic dynamic duo. Your CTO is going to be the sales engineer day one. Software engineering is a skill you need day one. Um, and between the CEO and the CTO, you got all of your selling capacity bundled up in there. In fact, your CEO is probably going to handle any technical bits in the sales call by themselves. So you won't really need a sales engineer until your revenue org has grown to the point where now you like just need to hire more specialized help. So it's a job that doesn't exist early days into the company. Similarly, like HR doesn't exist in companies until a certain scale. Very similar to sales engineering. So I think that's why whereas like software engineering or design, you need those roles right away. You need marketing roles. You need sales roles pretty early on in the company's life. Sales engineering just doesn't happen until the company hits a bit of a maturity. So the actual interview, let's get into like the actual interview process of this. This was great news for me. No more LeetCode. I spent my career running away from LeetCode however I could. Whether that meant that's why I was pulled to the world of startups so much, or to just like following, where I had referrals. Sales engineering, you don't need it. It doesn't have any bearing on the job because you're in conversations with vice presidents of engineering, directors of engineering, CTOs. It doesn't help to know LeetCode algorithms. You need to communicate value. So instead, your sales engineering interview will be highly behavioral. How and why questions, how you deal with customers, how you deal with clients, how you deal with objections, how you work through objections. There'll typically be some role play scenario where you may have to like pretend like you're selling the product for the company that you're interviewing for, hop on a discovery or do a mock demo call or whatever that may be. And if the product is super technical, you may actually have to do some type of technical project or showcase some type of technical competency. So for example, like if you're doing a dev tool company, using that dev tool and actually like showcasing a use case of it. I think personally the best way to prepare for an SE interview is just by learning how to sell, especially if you're a software engineer. The big thing to keep in mind, high-end software is bought, not sold. It's really different than I think most software engineers' idea of what selling looks like. It's definitely not what you saw at the used like car dealership. These high-end software and services are always purchased. And that I actually think is very natural for software engineers because they've been on the other end of it. Developers are the most allergic to marketing, but not when the marketing makes sense. Marketing makes sense, if you think of it from this lens. Like, if you're trying to sell a developer tooling, your goal is to build trust in the marketplace, show that you can actually solve a real problem, and really, get on the same side of the table, working with each other, not against each other, like you are in that dealership. I think the best way to do it is just learn how to sell, especially for a developer. I challenge you to go out to the marketplace and sell a website to a friend, someone that you've worked with. Let's say you've been in the industry for 3-4 years, or even like you're starting out. Go sell a website to an uncle, whatever. Someone that you have, somebody knows somebody that needs some type of development work. Sell a weekly retainer, sell some contract work, try some freelancing, go out into the marketplace, and sell something with your own two hands. This is something that I did also. I built a mobile app and I tried to sell it by building a marketing material just to understand how to communicate with people that are looking to get value from my technical product. Super important to learn how it feels to fail, how it feels to get on that same side of the table where it feels like you're really just cooperating and just having a conversation instead of a sales conversation. How it feels to solve someone's big problem for lots of money. And the last one is how it feels to win. When you close that website deal or that contract, how that feels in terms of like just you've made it over the hump. That's super important to have an instinct for. So you do this, you fail, you win, you fail, you win. You start building this war chest of anecdotes and stories. You're going to use all of that in your interview. And hopefully you have a really clean revenue number that just says like, yeah, I, with my own two hands, sold X amount of product or services with by myself. You have so much more confidence. You're going to be able to do the job essentially. You've done the job. You're good at what you do. You've done it. Now it's just a matter of proving that in the interview. So my personal journey of how I transitioned from software engineer into sales engineer. This is like kind of quick, kind of brief overview of how that happened. So, long time coder. First line of code at 12 years old. I did a CS degree at UC San Diego. Just worked for 5 years writing code nonstop. I started my first day of work the weekend after. Like I graduated on like a Thursday or Friday, and I started working on Monday. Um, Software engineer all the way through. Around the second or third year of work, my manager at Play Versus, which is a startup I worked at, we got together. We started Legacy. I was acting as CTO. We raised about $1 million VC funding. That kind of petered out. Really tough to find product market fit. I started Canoga Digital while at Legacy. I built that up to like 10K revenue. Just really wanted to see if I can like do something on the side, get some extra client work, while also like just kind of working on transitioning to full-time work afterwards. And then now, after doing these two, where I was essentially in Canoga Digital selling direct, like I was the account exec, I was the fulfiller, I was doing everything. In Legacy, where I was really a sales engineer, showcasing the product that we built, trying to communicate value to the music managers and the YouTubers that we were working with. Use all those experiences plus the deep technical stack that I've built up over the years, and finally I've landed in sales engineering. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview of what's going on here. So yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, like by doing Legacy, by writing code for all those years, by doing Canoga Digital and actually selling services, high-end services, I had just a war chest, tons and tons of like anecdotes and stories of like different scenarios, objections, some interpersonal issues when you're working with clients, when you're working with, like in Legacy, for example, we had a head of BD. So how we work together with tackling deals. I like I said, I mentioned here, sales engineer at Vercel. That's where I'm working now. These were super, super invaluable in that interview. So yeah, I mean, like I kind of mentioned, like the outcomes are pretty amazing when you have both control of how to build things and how to sell. The world is really is at your fingertips, in my belief. So I think that once you've kind of built these two up, you can just express far more agency in your career than if you're siloed into one or the other. But that's it. That's why I think if you're a software engineer and you want to get more freedom, you got to check out sales engineering. That's it.